Hi, Paula. Can you hear me? Hi, Paula. Can you hear me?
We can hear you. You can. Okay.
You can hear me?
Mayor, can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you. Can you hear me?
I can hear you.
Great, great.
Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you. So Paula, if you can hear me, it looks like we're about ready to start recording. Can anybody hear me?
Unfortunately.
Included that.
Well,
You mean to think of something else?
I think that's.
So is that 30?
Yes, Mayor, we can hear you.
Okay, great. So it looks like we're waiting for Councilmember Burrell, is that right?
Some of like, for example, like me and.
There she is.
Before them to back out there as well.
So Paula, if you want to let me know when we're recording.
I looked at it again. That's actually a good point. Something.
Yeah. Let me move. I'm gonna sit over here.
We are recording there, sorry. Thank you.
Great, thank you everybody for being here today. Especially with me being out of town and being able to do this remotely. I appreciate all of your patience. Today is Thursday, March 19th, 2024. My name is Mayor Mike Wickers, and this is the Cottonwood Heights City Council work session. The first item of business is item number 2 is going to be a review of our business meeting agenda. Because I will be on an airplane during this meeting, I'm going to have our Mayor Pro Tem, Councilmember Sean Newell, go through the review of our business meeting agenda this evening.
Wonderful, thank you. I am Sean Newell, your Mayor Pro Tem, and I just wanted to go over the run of evening for our business meeting. First, we'll have the welcome. Mayor, you will be available for the welcome or not?
No, Councilmember
Okay.
Newell, it's all you.
I'll make that welcome. Then we'll have the Pledge of Allegiance, and I'm going to ask Matt Holton if you'll do the Pledge of Allegiance for us. Wonderful, wonderful. We also have a number of City Council committee reports. These reports will be presented to you by our council, and the mayor will be absent there, but you'll hear from the other 4 council members, including myself, as far as that goes. We also have our citizen comment period, which will allow our citizens to be able to share in some of the comments that they have concerning the city. We have a number of action items this evening. Should we go through each of the action items?
We probably should.
Okay.
In case there's
So,
questions.
The action items includes a resolution 2024-14, where we'll be accepting a bid approving the entry into a construction contract with All Star Striping LLC for the 2024 citywide striping project.
Yeah, well, I can
Okay.
just,
Okay.
yeah, I can talk about it. Matt is not here right now, but he'll be here in just a minute.
Great.
We bid out the striping project, and had a number of good, bidders on that, and we're taking All Star Striping. They came in at the low bid. Matt, if you have anything to add, this is a contract for that. So we're recommending approval. Questions?
Any questions or anything? Wonderful. Second, we'll have a resolution 2024-15 approving and ratifying a bid and awarding a construction contract for the 2024 storm drain improvements projects. We have anything to add on that, Matt?
This is a storm drain line on Peppers Hill off Creek Road, just above the creek. We're adding inlets to eliminate some flooding issues that have occurred over the past couple of years. And also this is part of the project for Corey Hill Circle. If you'll recall the steep grade coming out of that, that is part of this project as well. So these two will be taken care of in that.
Wonderful, thank you. Our third action item will be consideration of resolution 2024-16, approving an agreement with CMT Technical Services, Inc. for construction management services.
This is for the 2 projects we just approved at the last council meeting. It is gosh, my mind just went completely. Prospector, thank you. And Town Drive, those 2 projects. They're fairly large projects. A lot of time gonna have to go into this and staying on top of this because of the testing and all those things. So we're recommending approval for this geotech firm to help us out.
Thank you. Action item 5.4 is resolution 2024-17, declaring certain property surplus. And
Scott Jurgen.
Scott,
Yeah, so this one is some IT equipment that is older and that doesn't get used anymore. Some old computers, some docking stations, some older monitors, and then some phone equipment that is from our old phone system, not our current phone system, that we're gonna get rid of and things, and just recommending this for disposal. That will sell it on a one of the online, the auction sites. Yeah.
great, thank you, Scott. Resolution or action item 5.5 is resolution 2024-18, declaring certain property surplus. And Chief, you want to?
Yeah, I'll make this as quick as possible. We have some military grade rifles that we used in parade ceremonies and special events. We are often criticized about using military weapons, so I've actually surrendered those back to the federal government. And we've acquired some new Henry rifles that are replicate what this was said with the weapon. You know, there were 30 lever action rifles that are specially made for CHPD, and we will be using those. In addition to that, we've had some extra fully automatic weapons that were in the arsenal. I want those to be destroyed and report those destructions to ATF and remove them off our inventory. Additionally, we have new armors, and in our arsenal, we use various calibers, which are 380, 45, 9mm, and 40 caliber. I've instructed them to use a single caliber, which will be a 9mm NATO round. And in so doing, we have some weapons that we bought 16, 17 years ago, that there are new generations of that are available. So we would like those declared surplus, and we aim, excuse the pun, to return those to so like wholesale and trade them in on the new modern 9mm weapons, which come with a new sighting system that has a red dot sighting system that allows the shooter to acquire a target much quicker and much with greater accuracy. That improves their marksmanship and liability. So to mitigate the cost to the city and switching over all those weapons, we presented a list of surplus guns that we would like you to support, and we will trade those in and then pay the difference and reallocate to the armory.
Great, thank you, Chief. Quick question. Have you seen any increase in value in any of those firearms?
No. You know, 30 years ago when we had the revolvers and we sold our those, we sold them for $100, and now they're, you know, $800-900 guns. So if you want to hang on to them for another 30 years, we may be able to make a fair profit.
That's why I asked the question.
Or we can trade them in now.
Yeah,
They're old Glocks and some,
Oh, okay,
a couple of old Springfields.
wonderful. Okay, moving forward, action item 5.6, resolution 2024-19, approving an agreement with Bowen Collins and Associates, Inc. for construction management services.
Very similar to the CMT contract. This is for the storm drain project that council approved, helping us out in the field with surveying and testing, material testing and alignments.
Wonderful, thank you. Last one, action item 5.7, consideration of resolution 2024-20, declaring certain property surplus. This is.
Yes, that's me again. So several years ago, we acquired some Doppler style radar guns that would be handheld, and we also mounted them onto the motors and use them to enforce speed regulations throughout the city. I don't know that the city actually purchased them. I think we were granted them through highway safety, again, through, you know, usage. They become Some of them are not serviceable, they become worn out. And we've acquired new equipment through highway safety. So, though we were able to piece together, I think, 4 units, handheld units of the old style radar guns that are still viable and they still have a value, but we would like to surplus them because we think we can use them with our partners in the community. For instance, we would like to donate them to like the baseball program at Brighton High School. They use them to, test speeds of new pitchers and so forth. So we can't just give them to them. We like to surplus them first, and then we can determine who the best receiver of those properties are.
Right, that's a great idea. Action item 6.0 will be the consent calendar. And we'll be looking for approval of that. And action item 6.1 will be the approval of the minutes of the city council legislative work session minutes of February 22nd and 29th, 2024, and the city council work session and business meeting minutes of March 5th, 2024. And action item 7.0, we'll be looking to hopefully adjourn the meeting at some point where we can go and enjoy our families. Thank you. Mayor?
Thank you, Councilmember Newell. I appreciate your review for that. So item 3 on our agenda rather is so we have Mr. Ladd Marshall. He's the Chief Revenue Officer with CWH LLC with us today. We're excited to get a report. So and to report to our citizens. CWH is in the process of they've actually started to lay fiber that will eventually get fiber to the home for the entire city of Cottonwood Heights. And so we're thrilled at that. They're following all of our current ordinances to do so, which won't require any special approvals from the council to let them continue. But we're excited that their commitment to our city with fiber is there. And so I'm going to turn some time over to Ladd. Can I call you Ladd?
Yeah, thanks, Mike.
Yeah, and let you give us an update on where you are and tell us what we're excited to hear about it.
Absolutely. So it's nice to see the weather turning a little bit. That's always exciting in terms of construction. So we've been working in several neighborhoods kind of by Fort Union Boulevard and Wasatch Boulevard, almost at the mouth of the canyon there. And we've been laying conduit, pulling fiber, and just recently we've been starting to shoot light and test the light levels. And we're anticipating to start turning up customers in the next week or two for some of these first areas. The response has been really good, I would say, overall so far. Most residents, like and want good connectivity for their home, whether they work from home, gaming, just general internet usage is kind of a necessity for a lot of households. So I think we've been able to fill a good spot in the market for someone that's local, really highly rated, and good prices. We've formalized our pricing and have been pre-signing up, lots of residents. And our pricing, just an update. I know the last time we talked, we were targeting kind of a $39 price point and not a promotional rate, but we felt like that's a really economical starting price point. And we're doing that. We have 400 megabits per second download and 200 upload for $39, which is really exciting. And then we have 1,000 or gigabit service for just $55. And then we're also offering gigabit service, 2 gigabit service as well. And that'll just be a little over $100. So from 39 to a little over 100, residents can get something that fits their needs and I think is very competitive. Those aren't promotional prices. It's not like it changes in a year. We plan on being a part of the community in these areas that we serve for a long time and like to be a breath of fresh air in terms of pricing and not that you have to fight with us to get your best deal. We're going to give you regular rates and great service.
For that gig and 2 gig, what's the uploads that
So
one?
yeah, we have the gig down and 500 up is just $55 a month. If someone wants something symmetric, so 1,000 down, 1,000 up, that's just $65. So 39, 55, 65, and then 109 for the 2 gig. And it's 2 gig down, 1 up. We eventually will probably offer some symmetric 2 gig services and even 5 gig. But right now, we're just gonna be offering that. The appetite for that hasn't been super high. I mean, we had a couple signups for that.
For which one?
For the 2
2
gig.
gig, okay.
Yeah, most people are like, oh, they like the $55 or $65 typically saves them, decent amount of money and either competitive or faster speeds. So that's kind of high level what we've been up to. We're about, I think in the next week or two, probably going to be in front of almost a little under 500 doors, which is great. Starting to, like I say, like those customers that have signed up.
If we've got folks that want to, obviously you're not in my district, which is west, so Highland Drive.
Yeah,
But if you've got people that want to pre-sign up,
absolutely.
what's your path? Where can they do that?
So our website, we have a new page on our website, Cottonwood Heights. So if you go to centawave.com and then to, I think it's internet, there's a drop down that says Cottonwood Heights. You can select it. And then there's a form that residents can put their name in and requested speed. And that creates kind of a lead in our system that we can reach out and talk to the customer and try to get the best plan for their needs.
So your program is based on request. I mean, you're not going into neighborhoods and laying infrastructure for.
Sure, you've got a plan how you're.
Absolutely. It's not random at all. So there's, a lot of, when you think of building a network, there's geography aspects, where's your current network and where are you building to? So we've started over there and we're starting to spread. Obviously demand, if there's a ton of demand in a certain area, that can help influence how quickly and where we go. But there is a lot of, you build out from a point and you keep going. So.
And to this point, what percentage of your installations are wireless versus burrowing?
So we don't, we're a unique internet service provider in that we do microwave in other areas, but in Cottonwood Heights, we have a few wireless customers. That's where there's a dish on the roof. We're doing a fiber build in Cottonwood Heights. So this is all fiber optic in the ground.
And are you putting your boxes or connectivity? I know that Comcast has them in the park strip. Is that what you're doing?
Yeah, in the public utility easement, typically, sometimes it's in the park strip, sometimes it's just past the sidewalk, depending on the neighborhood and where it's at. We try to match where the other utilities are typically. So if some of the other incumbents or the power are inside the park strip, we try to go there, but try to be similar to where the other utilities are in terms of box placement. So, yeah.
Hey, Lad, let me ask you a question if I could. So
Yeah.
I know part of your infrastructure build is including over the air through telephone wires to get into neighborhoods.
Oh, I think, is that what you meant by wirelessly? So we do.
No,
Okay.
but I know that's what your
Yeah.
model was. The
Mhm.
question is, once you've done that, and somebody wants to sign up based off of where, that fiber being over in that power line,
Mhm.
or I mean in the telephone pole,
Yep.
will you, when they sign up, will you actually bury the line or will you have it go overhead connecting to the house, if that makes sense?
Absolutely. So he's talking about if there's utilities on a power pole or a pole behind your house, you've got power, you might have some other communications carriers. We will be utilizing those poles where we choose fit and see best fit. So if the fiber's on the pole behind your house, it's kind of on a case by case basis. By default, we try to follow the other utilities. So if power is coming in aerially or the other communications and there's already a line there, we typically talk to the homeowner, hey, this is our plan. And that's what we plan on doing. Residents, if they want a buried drop, they can work with us kind of on a case by case basis to see exactly how the best path to achieve what they want is.
Yeah, I know in our neighborhood, it's above ground and we've been
Yeah.
notified.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Nice. You got a flyer. So we have flyered out even more areas than right where we're at today, where we're taking measurements on the pole and going through the different processes to work with some of the other entities to get on the poles. And
Can I ask you a
it's
timeline
exciting, yeah.
question? We've got some private lanes, at least in District 1, that they're basically using the T-Mobile hotspots or whatever you want to call them.
Yeah.
They don't really have even Comcast or CenturyLink or some of these other options. if, I know that they're gonna wanna jump on this, cause this is a big deal for them.
Yeah,
How would private lanes work? And, you know,
private lanes are different, right? Because they're not, typically, there's not a public utility easement there. We have to work with who owns the land, get some sort of an agreement. So I'd love to, I know we talk to you more.
Yeah.
These residents can reach out to, I can give you my card directly, and we can try to get the right agreements in place that facilitate us,
Okay.
serving them.
timeline wise, if I give them that info and say, hey, reach out to these folks, is this in the next couple years?
So we're pushing really hard to have a significant part of the city built this year. I mean, that's our goal. I'm always a little cautious on what percentages, but we are very focused, and this is not years. This is like, we want to get as much done as we can this year and into next year. So we kind of view
Okay.
like a 2-year target to get a lot done.
In CenterWave, unlike others, you are the administrator as well as the owner of the cable.
We're a private company, so we're not, it's our
You're not
fiber.
leasing your fiber
We're-
to other companies.
Not the stuff that we're putting in Cottonwood Heights. In telecom, you work a lot with other companies, because, if I need to get down to Utah County, I might not have my own fiber that goes there, or down to, Springville or something. So, but here in Cottonwood Heights, we're building all of our own stuff. We're permitting directly with the city and installing it, and we'll maintain it. It's our fiber.
There's a public perception because of previous attempts to put fiber in our city that this is something that we've chosen you,
Yeah,
even though that's not particularly the case. And I have the assignment in May to do our newsletter article.
yeah.
I'd like to reach out to you and get some information we could talk about.
Maybe help- We help clarify.
Yeah,
Sure.
give some good
I'd love
information.
to. Yeah, I think that's a big, I wouldn't say it's Utah, right? There's it's a very connected state, which is great. We love being part of Utah. There's some of these other quasi-public entities that have helped, spread fiber optic throughout cities, which is, a good thing. We're all about better connectivity. In this case, though, we felt like Cottonwood Heights was really synergetic with our current network, and there was a need, so we wanted to help fulfill that need. So we're funding this all. It's all CenterWave's money and our efforts to help residents in an area where there's a need. So we're really excited about it.
There's also a very active Facebook group of about 4,000 residents.
Oh, really?
There's already been some squawking,
Uh-huh.
and so we might want to get with you and
Yeah.
maybe dispel some of the rumors that are
Okay.
circulating around
We'd
there.
love to help. Yeah, I'm not dialed in as much. I'm not on your Facebook page, but yeah, we'd love to help answer any
Not official,
questions or
but-
So
Help.
Councilmember Highland, we actually planned that after we had this meeting with Lad coming, that the city would now go forward after this meeting and do kind of a social media push to
Awesome.
let people know who CenterWave is, what their plans are, and that we're expecting, within the year or hopefully
Yeah.
soon after, that every one of our, at least close to every one of our residents have the option to get fiber to the home. So-
That's our goal. I think my only, not caution, but input, Mike, and we haven't talked about this directly, but there is, we don't want to announce too much and too specifically what we're doing, because there can be, it's a competitive market out there. So we want to really just work with the neighborhoods where we're at, slowly get the word out. But if there's misperceptions, we'd love to help clarify, help you.
But the flip side of that is
Mhm.
that your competitors are being quite aggressive at signing people up for commitments right now that then they might regret. And so if you, again, I can reach out to you
Yeah,
personally and
We want to help get the word out and help residents understand who we are and what we're about. And I think that'll stand on its own.
coming to your neighborhood soon. It'd be a great message.
It's a good message.
Well, I would also like to just go on the record. I know in my District 4 on the east side, there have been residents who have struggled, I'll say, with construction or organized unidentified groups of workers who have come to the park strips and in some cases the yards, dug things up, and it's been pretty disruptive. And I won't name the companies that we ultimately now associate with those disruptions to. In some cases, someone has just flipped their strip or done new landscaping.
Mhm.
And,
How do you
I don't
not
know if
mess
you
that
have
up?
any statement from CenterWave related to how your teams work.
Yeah.
When you have teams working within residential areas, do they divulge who they're working for? I mean,
Yeah.
I think a lot of residents, they've
Yeah.
contacted me because they're very frustrated. It's like, there's a group of men, some of them don't speak English.
Yeah.
And they're digging up my yard. I don't know what company they're with. They won't tell me. So I'm just wondering if you can give us any
So we-
assurance of how Centerway.
Yeah, so I think, we, number one, flyer before we do the work, which is really important, putting things on people's doors, letting them know, hey, we're gonna be doing work in the, you know, in the utility easement or on the poles. We do have a project manager that's out there working with, we have some of our own crews and some subcontractors. I think we have about 3 to 5 crews working in Conwood Heights right now, which is great. Doing various things, but we have a project manager out and about, and he's, you know, driving a Centerway vehicle around in these neighborhoods where we're working. Sometimes he's, you know, getting flagged down by residents, talking to them. So I think we've done a good job. Obviously, we plan on, you know, communicating flyers and making sure that, you know, construction workers, if they're asked, know what to say or who they're doing the work for. That's important. So I think we've done a pretty good job, and we look to continue to do that and even do better. So but
So we
the
need to-
flyers and having someone out there in the field actively is important. So we're doing that.
To Councilmember Burrell's point, when you do disturb someone's strip, if they put rocks, paper, whatever it may be, I know a lot of the times they spend a lot of money to do it. I'm guessing you all replace it, put it back as new?
Yeah, our goal is to restore it the best we can. Typically with a lot of the stuff we do, there is a hole that has to be dug so we can either drill or launch with the pneumatic bore, you know, and create a path to pull the conduit through. But typically there's tarps that are put down in the dirt, and then you can put it back and lay the grass back down. So when it's done properly, especially as the grass and the stuff grows, lots of times you can't even tell we're there. Sometimes you can, and that's where, you know, we talk to the customer and make sure we do our best to resolve their concern. So
Last question for me is apartment complexes. How do you deploy those in apartment complexes? Do you work with some? I know some apartments, they include internet as part of their
yeah,
rent.
yeah.
Just some thoughts there.
Absolutely. So Centerwave, one of our, you know, key things we do is apartments. We have apartment complexes that we service throughout the Wasatch Front, thousands of units that we offer bulk service to typically. And in a property that already has a bulk service, number one, you need a right of entry agreement to go into any private kind of apartment complex. So we work directly with the owners and make sure that there's a need and a demand. If they already have service that's required of them by the property, we won't go in there, right? Why would we go if they're forced to pay someone else for internet or pay the property? But you know, there are some apartment complexes that are either in entitlement or potentially scheduled in Cottonwood Heights that we'd love to service. So apartments are unique in that you have to work with the owner. So we'll actively be approaching owners, and if we can add value and get better speeds for the property and
Great.
get an agreement with the owner, we'll absolutely do it. So,
All right.
yeah, there's not a ton of apartments in Cottonwood Heights, but there are some key ones, either older or
A lot along Highland Drive and then down by
yeah.
Fort Union, yeah.
Maybe to make this a, you know, a little inquiry, but I have one more question.
Yeah, go for it.
What is your service standard for repairs and customer service typically?
Absolutely. One thing we pride ourselves on is being really easy to work with. I think we have that customer focus and really care about our customers and the neighborhoods we're in. So we have 24/7 tech support. You can get someone right here in Utah, which is awesome. They're not hard to understand. You can talk to them, and we can lots of times troubleshoot it over the phone and fix it. If we need to send a technician out, we have techs out in this area often, and we normally can get a technician out sometimes same day or within 24 to 48 hours to your house. But typically we try to resolve it right then or same day.
Well, lad, that was great. That was informative and good questions, and we appreciate the update, and we will be in constant communication as we watch you move forward, and we're excited for the services you get to offer to our residents. So thank you.
Hey, thank you. Appreciate it.
Yep. Okay, it looks like our next item on the agenda is item number 4, but I don't see our lobbyists in the meeting room yet. So what we'll probably do is move on to 5A, our first staff report, and then maybe we'll come back to the lobbyist report when we see them get here. So 5A is we have with us today Mr. Jim Kitchus, our historic committee chair. And he's gonna give us an update on the Veterans Memorial that their committee has been working really hard on, and we're excited to hear more. And so come on up, Jim, to the table.
Yeah, it's okay. Well, thank you for giving us the opportunity to tell you where we're at with the Veterans Monument. We do have a presentation that we were gonna pull up for this. Paula, was that available?
Yes,
Oh,
sorry.
oh, no worries. Thank you.
There we go. Sorry about that. No, I need to share.
So I wanted to cover today where we're at as a committee with the design proposal for a Veterans Monument, where we're proposing it would be located here on the campus of City Hall. Possible funding options that could help with deferring or help cover costs for the monument. And sort of next steps. So that was kind of what my presentation was intended to cover today. I do have Scott Peters, who's with us today. He has been working with the committee. Oh, thank you. With the committee on bringing this concept to life. Scott's a landscape architect, and he's here. He can help answer any questions or give further insights into the monument elements. So from there, let me go ahead and just start with the design. We had an initial design that was brought forward by the committee, and with Scott's help, we've been able to really refine that into something the committee is recommending and something we feel the city would be very proud of. This is what the monument would look like. As far as right in the middle, that gives a sense of scale for people standing in front of it. East facing. Based on feedback that we've received, this is what we're proposing. So this would be looking, you'd be standing on the east side of the monument, but looking to the west. You would have the silhouette of the soldier. You would have right in the middle there language that our committee has proposed, and it's basically talking about service. And then on the right-hand side, we have the emblems of each of the branches of service and the gold star with language explaining what the gold star means. That is people who have actually lost a loved one in service. So that's what the east facing side of the monument would look like. On the other side of the monument, you'd actually be looking directly at the canyons. And that is what the visual cutaway of the top of the monument is actually mirroring. So it's not in color, but the proposal is the left-hand side would be made of stone that would either be quarried from Big Cottonwood Canyon or would be stone that you would find in Big Cottonwood Canyon. The right-hand side would be the same for Little Cottonwood Canyon. Right in the middle, we would have information under the city logo talking about the geology that has shaped this place and the canyons. And then on the left-hand side, we would have a marker that is giving you history about Big Cottonwood Canyon. On the right-hand side, history of Little Cottonwood Canyon. And the committee is still in the midst of developing exactly what the language would be there, but it would pretty much be, talking about some physical elements of the canyons themselves, how long they are, highest points possibly along the ridge, how they've served as vital sources of water for the communities that have emerged and used this region. We would have information about the historic uses of the canyon. So particularly on the Little Cottonwood side, we'd want to talk about the history of mining and quarrying for historic buildings in Salt Lake. Information on towns and communities that have emerged within the canyon, and then recreational uses of the canyon. That's what's being considered right now, but we're certainly open to feedback on that because none of that has been written. That's just sort of what we've been considering. So this would be the monument itself. Now, as far as, and I'll go into location in just a minute about where we're proposing, but we're proposing two parts to this monument, and they could actually be phased, and I'll talk about that under the sort of next steps. But basically, you'd have the monument, which is the sort of vertical thing on the right, the city seal, and then on the left-hand side, we're proposing a raised up off the ground. This could be made out of concrete or granite. Basically a map that you could look down on in relief that would show the city of Cottonwood Heights and possibly mark out areas of interest that you know, people who are standing at the monument could look down and see themselves, see where they're at in Cottonwood Heights, and then get a visual overhead representation of the city at large. That is just a dropped-in map of Cottonwood Heights and the canyons. That would be refined if we decided to move forward with this proposal. We kind of dial in exactly how much of the city are we showing versus the canyons. What are we actually representing on that map? Right now, the discussions we've talked about, you know, really focusing on the waterways within the city, talking about highlighting the parks within the city, public buildings, so the schools. Places that, you know, everyone in the community sort of knows and would be interested in sort of visualizing in that sort of aerial space.
Quick question.
Yeah.
What are the dimensions of that concrete display there?
So great question. Scott, can you answer that?
Yeah, so and Scott, could you come up closer so we can hear, people can hear?
You bet. The brick area is approximately 13 feet wide, and I can bring it up and look at the other distance. I'm guessing it's about 26 feet. It's basically the planter that is just out there. It's the existing planter.
This closest one here?
No, the one that is out just
That's at
past
ground
the
level?
light. Yep, just past the
Ground level,
yep.
how's the light pole?
Got it.
And that answers my second question, if you had skateboard mitigation, which that's good.
So that would be,
So you can see on this plan,
They will do it.
the dark outline on the top and left is the city hall. And then you have the plaza in front, which is right out here. And you can see the little 3 dots with the little squigglies on them. That's where the flags are. And then right in front of the flags is the existing City of Cottonwood Heights sign. And then the planter that's right in front of it between the City of Cottonwood Heights sign and the street.
so how, that would be raised, the slide we just looked at, that would be a raised surface. It's not ground level. Is that right?
Yeah, so the part where the map is, that would be sitting on a 2-foot concrete pedestal?
I was thinking it would be more like a 1 foot concrete pedestal with a 6-inch map on top of it, so that it was at seat height, so that someone could sit on the edge of it if they like. Kids could climb on it and check things out, etc.
How's it gonna be displayed? Is it printed and there's something on top? I'm just thinking durability wise, what?
Do you want me to answer that or do you want to go?
No, go ahead.
So what I envisioned would be a granite slab that would then have the features of the city etched into it. So it would be very permanent. An alternative to that, to reduce cost, would be to do a concrete slab that then would be sandblasted to etch the components.
Okay, thanks.
So yeah, we kind of covered the location of the monument. It would, you know, be right here, very visible as you're driving on Bengal Boulevard, very visible from across the street at the high school. Kind of, this would be sort of the street view if you were standing across the street at Brighton and looking across. So you can actually see somebody sitting on the monument as it's sort of raised there. There's a bench to the east of the monument, so people could sit there, read the words of the monument, and, we hope reflect on the whole reason and intent behind the monument. But then we have benches sort of surrounding the entire monument itself, so that it becomes this area where people can sort of stop and sit and ponder.
If I may, I'm still, I'm just trying to grasp this and imagine I'm standing over there looking across. And I know the tree is just for effect, it doesn't exist. But I'm just wondering, or maybe there is a tree, if the monument part is there, will the bench be like right up against the railing there at the corner?
So, so here's the edge of City Hall.
Yeah.
We're right in.
Yeah.
Well, back in a room over here, looking out, you have this raised planter right there, and then these two existing raised planters are buried between them. And then these are the three benches that you can see right out the window on the other side of this turf right in front of us. And then this area is what we're talking about. And so the main monument would be right here. And then you would have a bench here and a bench here and two benches there and two benches there. So there's plenty of room to be able to walk that whole area.
Okay, so it's all on this side of the flagpole in essence.
So the flagpole is here. Out here is Bengal Boulevard, so it's on that side of the flagpole.
Oh, I thought the circular was the flagpole, but it's.
This is the raised planter with the flagpole.
Oh, okay.
And so the monument that is here with the soldier saluting, he would be, or she would be right here on this panel. And the idea is that silhouette is saluting the flags, but it's also saluting the.
So when you're driving on Bengal, heading west, you can see it.
That's the
Yeah,
idea.
it's right there, yeah.
That's the idea, is you come through and you can see it.
That's very helpful. Thank you. I'm with you now. Okay, got it. Thank you.
And these benches would be made of stone from Big Cottonwood Canyon, and these would be stone.
I love the way you incorporated the stones from Big and Little Cottonwood. I know that's been since the inception. It's just really brilliant.
Can you go back to the first one?
Yeah.
So I want to point out that this is actually the skyline as you see the mountains from City Hall. And then this line that would be engraved into it, in this line, this is a portion of Big Cottonwood Canyon, and this is a portion of Little Cottonwood Canyon, the alignment as you go up the canyon a little ways. The about right there is where right there is where the S turn is, so it gives you an idea of scale.
You might have mentioned this, the main monument is made out of what type of stone?
So this half of the monument would be made out of stone from Big Cottonwood Canyon. And then this half of the monument would be made out of stone from Little Cottonwood Canyon.
Very cool.
Any other questions that we can answer on the design or location? Okay, so.
Hey, Jim.
Yeah.
Just real quickly, I probably should have mentioned this before we got started. Councilmember Holton and Councilmember Highland weren't here when we first tasked this over to you all. And maybe just real quickly, I'll give a quick background of why we're even considering what we're considering today. So there's a national organization that works with cities to create veterans monuments. to honor Gold Star families. And so there are multiple cities within Salt Lake County that have done this monument. So as I saw that in some other cities, I brought it to our council and then to our historic committee, and our historic committee, to their credit, wondered about doing so rather than doing exactly what's been done in other cities with the national organization, designing our own, which would then allow us to actually determine exactly what's on the stone. If we went through the Gold Star family one side of the stone would actually have to be the exact same as all the other cities. This way, we're able to design probably a more unique monument to honor veterans and still honor the Gold Star families within Cottonwood Heights. And the historic committee has, like you've seen so far, has done an unbelievable, amazing job that I think we're all thrilled about. But so I meant to give that background, Jim. But having done that, go ahead.
Okay, thank you, Mayor. Well, I did want to go ahead and talk about potential cost and funding. So based on, kind of what we know, costs of things, we have, I think, Scott, is it fair to say, kind of a ballpark of like what it could cost and then what we could potentially scale down based on sort of the desire for keeping it within certain costs. One option that we have, and I'll kind of talk, or I have this in the next steps, but we do have the option with Scott's design of potentially phasing this. So if we were to go that route, potentially the right-hand monument side could be phase 1, and phase 2 could be the build out of the actual map of Cottonwood Heights. So there is that opportunity if they wanted to split costs. But we were asked to consider how we could potentially do some fundraising and get citizens involved in helping potentially help with some of the funding on this. So what I've done here is taken the shot that we saw earlier and highlighted where we see sort of the major opportunities for engaging the city and the community and possibly bringing in some funding. The red sort of rectangles around everything, those are the benches. And we are proposing we could potentially have those sponsored and they'd be made out of stone, but that would be one area of some cost recovery to have sponsored benches. And then all of the actual paving around all of the monument, that's all done in brick that could be lifted and removed. So we could potentially sell bricks that people could pay to have either their family's names or a loved one who served, potentially emblazoned on the brick at a cost and put into it, reset back into the monument as an option. So those are sort of the options that we've considered or talked about with the historic committee. And as far as next steps, this is the monument after a year plus now of sort of going over designs and having Scott's great help and assistance on things. This is the plan that the historic committee is putting forward as our recommendation. But we're certainly open to refining elements, refining things based on city feedback. We would need finalization of the plan and the funding model and support of either, are we going with the whole concept or are we going with the phased approach for it? Once all that is settled, it would actually go out for RFP to a monument construction vendor where the cost would get fixed. We would launch the fundraising effort. Construction would begin. And then once the monument's completed, we're proposing some sort of unveiling or ribbon cutting ceremony. It seems to make sense to really focus that around either a Memorial Day or a Veterans Day event where we could, really unveil this thing and have it be meaningful. So those are sort of the next steps that we had envisioned, and we're happy to answer any other questions. Just before we get to that, I did just want to thank our historic committee for all the work they've put in on this, particularly Don Cannon, Jerry Christensen, Bruce Lubick, and Ken Verdoya. They were really the sort of drivers in getting the initial design together. Big thanks to Scott. He's really done marvelous work taking that initial work and bringing it, really leveling it up to this level that we're presenting today. And then thanks to Ann Etchell for being a big support and helping us guide all of this. So with that, that's the presentation I prepared, and we're happy to try and answer any questions.
Are there any grant opportunities?
We've explored it and we have not been successful in finding anything to this point.
So one thing that I wanted to add is so as far as fundraising goes, so the national organization for the other Veterans Memorial that I talked about, most of those cities completely funded their entire monument through fundraising. And so I think that that's a super valid option for us. The only one of the things, Jim, during your timeline, I might actually move up the fundraising actually above some of the things listed, so that might determine how much and how far we're willing to go with your design. I loved absolutely everything about it. I'd like to get the council's thoughts on what they've looked at, but fundraising might, in my mind, be the next step, because I think we'll have a lot of people willing to participate in this and hopefully, honestly, cover almost all of the cost. So
Is this something that, I know in the discussions over the last year that I served as liaison within your committee, there, you don't want to appeal to this, that it's commercialized in any way, but on the other hand, we know that we have a lot of, big corporations that call Cottonwood Heights home. And I'm wondering if there is a way to approach them, and I mean, if it's something that the council and your committee thinks there could be a way to very carefully acknowledge, corporate support, it maybe in a very different way than the bricks and the other very thoughtful things that you've already included in your design, but get some significant chunks of money out of potentially corporations who would like to acknowledge, both the city and certainly the veterans and military branches.
And I think it would be really easy to get a small little plaque, something that said funded funding
Additional support.
supported by, and someone's name, and they could have a little plaque there that's similar to the other plaques. I think that would be a really tasteful way of doing that.
some of the things that Jim talked about are exactly what other cities have done. Little bricks with families who have donated, along with benches and those type of things. So all of the other monuments have similar items to what Jim talked about. I'd like to get the council's thoughts though on the design and what he's presented to us. What are your thoughts?
What is our timeline on this again?
We're not under any gun. We've tasked the historic committee, Matt, with coming up with this design, and they've now done that.
Cool.
So
They've
now,
done an amazing job.
yeah, absolutely. Now it's
And
up to us to determine next steps, whether we want to accept their work and how to fund it. And anyway, yeah.
I think, Mayor, what you were saying earlier, I think I agree. It'd be great to see it all happen. Depends how much we can raise and what the total costs are. I haven't heard a total dollar amount. I just had a resident who was tuning in, just suggesting, which is why I asked about the timeline. I know the historical committee a lot of the times has a booth at Butlerville Days, and you could do some fundraising there and find public community opportunities for people to pitch in on some of these efforts. So if we go into the summer, that could be a great opportunity.
Yeah, absolutely. No
Well,
timeline, Matt.
Cool.
Well, and maybe even tie something in with Memorial Day coming up. This could be an opportunity to do something perhaps in the square. People, I think, would be so hungry to see these prototypes and acknowledge all the work that's going on and build that excitement. So with the end of May still far enough away, we could promote it in the newsletters and on the website and, maybe launch something to that effect.
One other question. I know that you obviously would have to put an RFP out to get an exact idea on what this is going to cost and what people are going to charge. Do we have a guesstimate on the entire project and what the phase 1 or phase 2, if it did break down into phases, even if it's a ballpark figure?
Yeah, are you okay speaking with that, Scott? Okay.
Yeah, so I put together an estimate. It includes all of the construction items, some lighting for it. It includes the contingency as well as 10% for design services. That total estimate came to just under 150,000. As far as phasing goes, I haven't broken the phasing out, but I would guess that first phase would probably be close to half, something like that. But I could break that out and I can provide that information.
That's good. Yeah, thanks.
Is that 150,000 for the edge stone or the edge concrete approach?
So that would be for all stone, including the monument, the base, the horizontal monument. My estimate, if you were to go with concrete, it would save about $15,000.
Thank you.
And we did a rough count. I could be off. And so Scott, can you correct me if you happen to know. We anticipate within that sort of bricked area, probably having capacity for around maybe 600 bricks in that area, which could go sort of just help with the math of if you charge this much for bricks, you know, if we were able to sell all of them, this is how much we could plan on bringing in.
And I think one alternative would be to pull the bricks out, send them out and get them etched. But I think a second alternative may be to even have someone like they do at the cemetery just come and etch the bricks in place. I think that might be an easier way.
Do we have a sense of what other cities have charged per brick? I mean, this, as we all know, takes place in a lot of cities where a memorial, there's bricks, and I don't know how big these bricks are, but are we thinking,
We haven't done a deep dive, but Ken Verdoya on the committee has pretty ample experience in this sort of development realm and having participated in different projects where this kind of brick, he was sort of thinking, you know, $200 per brick seems pretty in line with what you would expect to pay for something like this.
$200 to $300?
Yeah, I've seen the 300 and 300, you're looking at $180,000 to take care of.
Even two would basically fund it. Then you're looking at the benches as well that,
How much
people-
would those? go
yeah.
for?
So I've estimated the benches to be just look about $3,000 to $3,500 a bench.
The cost of the bench, yeah.
Yep.
So the sponsorship.
Installed.
So would we ask for that full amount if somebody wanted to sponsor a bench?
I think that's a choice.
Yeah.
You would have. That might be something that you could target.
Did you just say budget?
That might be something that you target businesses and sell them for 15,000 a piece or something, 10,000, whatever, you know.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's sounding very viable. I mean, as you describe all this, it's really
Yeah.
exciting.
And I'm forgetting what just to give sort of a sense of with the Gold Star monuments that the mayor had mentioned that are sort of the pre-constructed, they come in, they set it up and you know, it looks pretty uniform across cities. The cost was pretty comparable for paying for something like that. I wanted to say it's somewhere between $150,000 and $200,000 to pay to have that brought into your city. Was my memory from when we looked at that initially.
Yeah, you're in the right ballpark, Jim.
I mean, the great news is that the promotion of this should have a relative little to no cost. I mean, we already
Yeah.
have a website, we produce a newsletter, we have staff capable of putting together communication and, you know, it's exciting to think of trying to get it off the ground. If the estimates seem to ultimately cover, I don't think the public needs to know the exact timeline, but if they begin investing in it, you know, we thinking maybe in a year and a half from now. The
Yeah.
other thing that came to my mind, I love this idea of a relief map, and a couple of big things that we might know in another, well, 12 to 18 months, although would be both our city center and our, hopefully we'll have an intermodal hub at the mouth of Big Common Canyon. To me, those are going to be two quite iconic things for our city, but you know, whether we would know to, and or whether that everybody wants to include that, but they come to my mind when I think of important elements within our city.
No, thank you for that feedback. And we had considered the city center being, the list we had brainstormed, and this is very, very open for refinement and discussion, had 24 things on it. Like I said, it included City Hall, the canyons, the city center, the schools, middle, high school, and elementary, public spaces, so Whitmore Library, the rec center, the parks, and then a couple of historic sites, the Old Mill, the Union Park Cemetery, and the East Jordan Canal. Yeah, I think, and this would be working with Scott in how to implement that without making it too busy. Like, what does that actually end up looking like? And that would be, we haven't really dived into that part of it yet because that wasn't part of the assignment yet. We were waiting to see what the response to this was.
So I think from feedback that it sounds like the council's agreeable to move forward, maybe to a fundraising phase. Is that fair to say that might be the next step? I just thinking about who might be a great one to be in charge of that. I don't know if Ken has any capacity, but Ken Verdoya as your spokesman in fundraising would probably be able to do it quicker than anybody. But anyway, and I imagine anyway, Tim, any thoughts on how we would organize that? Would the art historic committee be okay heading that fundraising arm up?
Yeah, I think that's fine. We'd work with them, staff can work with them as well. And we can just start organizing that and see what we can put together as staff and as a committee. So I'm comfortable with that.
Jim, what are your thoughts?
Yes, I would give sort of the caveat, nobody on the committee really comes from a background of doing this kind of like development work. Ken is probably the closest. And, that's been just in different areas. So if we had city support and, city staff helping with it, I think we could come up with the plan that we could help. We'd run by and make sure everyone's okay with it. And then sort of work with the city to develop the strategy for how we're going to go about getting it out there and start raising awareness and interest and see what we can bring in.
Awesome. Well, Jim, your committee is amazing. So, no, honestly, I'm amazed every time you present to us and show us all your hard work, and there's a reason you're winning awards, and Councilmember Burrell and now Holton are honored to be able to even be a part of your committee. So thank you for all you do. And it looks like we're ready to move forward to a new exciting phase on this. So, okay. Thank you, Scott, for coming as well. Tell your dad, Jim, hi, Scott.
I will. Thank you. Thank you.
Yeah. Okay.
Can you hear me?
Yeah. Yes.
So we have Chantel, Nate, and Greg Curtis are here. Brian is on his way. He had a service project meeting that he's running late on, but they are both here. We can wait for Brian if you want, or we could move into that depending upon what you want to do.
I think Chantel's more than capable, if you ask me. So we'll move into, why don't we move to go back to item number 4, our lobbyist report. We'll invite Chantel, Nate up, and did you say Greg Curtis is here? Yeah, looking tan after a cruise, looks like, Greg. So yeah, so I'm going to turn the time over to who wants to go first? So this is basically a report on the legislative session for 2024. We appreciate our lobbyist work. They did amazing things for us. They're going to tell us about some of the amazing things they did for us, but I don't know if you two have a plan on who wants to start.
Gonna go first, see if Brian pops in.
All right, yeah, I'm mostly gonna just talk about funding options that we were looking at. And most of the funding it was all wrapped up into one bill, House Bill 488, passed on the second to last day, I think. Lost track of the days, but there were I think probably 4 things in there that I think will be beneficial to Cottonwood Heights in the long run. 2 of them have immediate effectiveness. The first being there was an appropriation, and I went on vacation right after the session and, I think it was $1.5 million. Okay. $1.5 million for the intersection on Fort Union and 2300 East. Will come out of the quarter fund, to Cottonwood Heights. It's based upon a kind of a reimbursement basis. UDOT, there's been some issues in the past where money's been appropriated, given to various municipalities and never made it to the end of the row, so to speak. So UDOT is kind of like, all right, and it's not a stringent reimbursement process. They just want to see that the project that was funded is being done. So the second one is the discretion for the executive director of UDOT, or Carlos Braceras, to use up to 2% of the Cottonwood Canyon Transportation Fund, which is 2% a year, which is $20 million a year, $400,000 to contract with local governments for assistance in traffic traction control enforcement. That will become effective in the fiscal year July 1st. We'll just need to reach out to UDOT and say, let's work on that interlocal to ensure that that money will flow, and it should flow in your next fiscal year for the city, starting in July.
So Greg, I just want to compliment you because, so this started out from, we took a leap of faith to hire some more officers to help us up on Wasatch Boulevard and the mouth of the canyon. And we hit a bunch of roadblocks during that time that said no, and we kept working, and you, along with others, came up with some amazing ideas, and came up with a different way to get an appropriation than we had originally thought. But so I just want to make sure you understand how appreciative we are that this is without your help, we wouldn't be here right now, being able to cover part of this new traffic enforcement division we have. So.
Oh, well, thank you, Mayor. The nice thing about this, there was a lot of work behind the scenes. Tax Commission had their issues. The state finance department had to put their fingerprints on it. So we worked through all those issues, and it's ongoing. So it will stay at that 2%. Until someone changes the statute otherwise. The other thing we did on the Cottonwood Canyons Fund is we changed that. It was capped at $20 million a year. We changed that to a percentage, so it will grow with sales tax growth. So for example, if the state sales tax grows at 5% next year, the fund will now have $21 million. That 2% will grow with that $21 million. So it would be
awesome.
$420,000. Okay. So it's got a growth factor. It's ongoing in perpetuity until someone changes the statute. But it does, in order to satisfy the department and others, it does have the department's discretion. So you'll have to, I don't see any problem whatsoever with Carlos Braceras. And, we're working with whoever goes forward, so, all right.
So with that, is it divided up between municipalities, like Sandy gets some, Cottonwood Heights gets some?
That's the discretion of the department director. So if he feels it's 300,000 for Cottonwood Heights and 100,000 for Sandy, or however, that's his discretion.
So
Yeah.
Robbie, I'm not even going to tell Sandy when the meeting is. So yeah.
Well, Mayor, full disclosure, I do.
Yeah, I was gonna say he will.
I represent Sandy, so I do need to give them notice. So how, as my grandmother used to do, one of us would cut the pie, the other one got to choose the piece. So we tried to cut as evenly as we possibly could, but I don't know what, and I don't know all of the facts as far as lane mileage and other things. I think Cottonwood Heights probably has more lane mileage because you're definitely only big Cottonwood Canyon. Sandy has no there, and you have a large portion of people traveling through Cottonwood Heights going up Little Cottonwood. So I think you could make a compelling argument. I'm gonna gracefully step back and say I represent both of you.
But Mayor, he's got to drive through Cottonwood Heights to get back to Sandy,
Yeah.
and so we could stop him.
Yeah, yeah, I might need to get new tires.
Yeah.
Okay, so that's a traction control, Cottonwood Canyons funds, a 1.5 million. The other thing, is Salt Lake County had been reluctant to impose the 5th of the 5th, which is a sales tax option, because they wanted some discretion in regards to what they could use that for. They didn't want it just for transportation or transit. So that statute was changed to allow them to also use it for public safety. And so the county is more committed to looking at imposing that tax. And when that tax is imposed, the municipality will receive its share of the 0.05 that flows through to municipalities, similar to you get out of the fourth quarter, you get a 0.1 in your sales tax. You'll get a 0.05. So I don't know what that number is for Cottonwood Heights, but I imagine it's at least a couple, $300,000 a year. So that will flow. And then the other thing is in that 5th quarter, there was a Salt Lake County loan fund that was created with the first 3 years of a portion of that fund. Doesn't affect the city or the county, but a portion of that fund, there was a Salt Lake County Infrastructure Bank loan fund created. When that loan, when that is repaid, that first tranche of that loan is repaid, 20% of the repayments of that, and this is the long game in this one here, but 20% of the repayment of that loan will flow into the Transit Mobility Center, anticipated being in the gravel pit there just north of Big Cottonwood Canyon. The nice part about it, it's in statute now. I am a little bit nervous that the governor has chosen to wait until the last day, hasn't signed it yet, so don't know what that's all about, but it passed unanimously in both bodies, so I'd have a hard time believing that he would choose to veto it at this point, but
May I ask a point of clarification on that? I think this is where the community, some of the community was kind of concerned about those monies specifically going to an intermodal hub there at the mouth of Big Cottonwood Canyon and not to ultimately fund the gondola. Can you speak to any specificity on that?
well, it specifically says in there that it has to go to the mobility center. Okay, I wish I could remember the exact language, but it's
Mobility hub.
yeah, transportation mobility center, or mobility hub. So it has, statutorily, I mean, UDOT, I mean, it flows to UDOT and that's what it's directed to be used for. I mean,
In other words, it's not going towards the gondola.
right,
Yeah.
no, UDOT
By
would have
law,
to violate
yeah.
the law to use it towards the gondola, which I don't really anticipate them doing. So,
It
Yeah.
says, I have the language, Transit Mobility Center on property north of Big Cottonwood Canyon.
okay, yeah.
Perfect.
So we tried to narrow that down pretty specific,
Thank you.
And the nice part is this is all based upon percentages in the bill and nobody likes to do the math, so nobody knows how much money that is, but in the long run, that's $20 million. And so that'll be a significant infusion into some infrastructure there. And my thoughts in regards to that were as UDOT moves forward, and I worked with UDOT and tried to work on some intent language to put in the budget to encourage them to move forward with parts of phase 1, specifically in that transportation mobility center. Their attorneys asked them to say, please do not put intent language in there. We're dealing with opposing counsel and litigation. UDOT is trying to work because they will not do any work. They'll do design work and they can design and engineer for a long time, but they will not go in there and turn over any dirt and do any work until they either have a stipulation with the plaintiffs or they have a judicial
But
determination.
in terms of purchasing the actual 13 acres of property there at the mouth of Big Cottonwood Canyon from the gravel pit.
I don't know if they would do that. I think the challenge that you might face with that would be they will not use eminent domain with the litigation still pending.
Well, they have, I think, a buyer, a willing seller. But I don't know if he's gonna be a willing seller forever, I guess is what I'm
Right.
concerned about.
And well, part of the issue will be is I don't think that the owner is interested in saying, I'm gonna sit on my hands for the length of this litigation for development, because this litigation has the potential of being a decade, you know, and I mean, and I don't know if they're gonna say, okay, well, you know, we'll just sit here and watch. So that's gonna be, that's why I was asking UDOT to say, will you try and work aggressively to do that? Because I think most individuals, those who are opposed to the gondola, those who might be in favor of the gondola, those who want to see something done for canyon transportation, want to see the mobility center built. And because part of the conversation was if you don't demonstrate, because I have many conversations with Mayor Mendenhall and Mayor Wilson and others in regards to this, and if you don't demonstrate that phase one works, then, and we just, everybody draws a line in the sand and says nothing's done there, well, then they'll just litigate it. And there's nothing worse than litigating with somebody that's not writing checks out of their own pocket. Okay, they'll just keep right on going, and UDOT will just keep litigating, and plaintiffs will have plenty of money, and that's why it could take several years, a decade would not surprise me at all. But if nothing, if you can't show that phase one works, then when the litigation is done, depending on who prevails, then they'll just move through the phases at whatever pace they want or they are allowed to. But if you can demonstrate that phase one works, and with the phase one, phase two, which would be but snow sheds with some tolling, then I think the gondola becomes much more problematic. So anyway, but UDOT asked, please don't put the intent language in there. Our council is asking not to, but they have committed to me. They're willing to approach the plaintiffs and say, will you allow anything to happen here? But they will not do anything, disturb any dirt or use the power of condemnation without a stipulation or a court order. They just won't, they got tagged pretty hard on Legacy Highway when they were moving forward while litigation was going on, and it just won't happen. So, but those are the things that I think will stand to benefit Cottonwood Heights in regards to the 488. And I'm gonna let Brian and Chantel talk about all the other marvelous pieces of legislation. It started as a wild session, but they start ready to show the cities who's in charge, and gonna rule the world. I think calmer heads prevail by the end of the session on most issues.
Yeah.
So,
Absolutely.
We're still full contact sport.
yeah.
There were a lot of bills that started out in a pretty bad place. We worked heavily with the league and other city lobbyists, and we were able to get most of them put in a pretty good place. I think the areas that were of most concern initially to the city were any bill that would usurp city control, and for the most part, those kind of got tamped down. I mean, the infrastructure financing district ended up being pretty innocuous for cities in the end. There were a number of bills around housing that started out being mandate on local control, but ended up being more of an encouragement, not a mandate, which is good. The legislature is still, looking for avenues to help figure out how to make affordable housing work. And they did pass some bills that are tools for that, but how effective they'll be ultimately is going to depend on the developer community and whether or not they want to take advantage of them. But the good news is it doesn't really pose a burden on the city or make the cities do anything they wouldn't necessarily want to do. So, and in talking with the league, in their sense is that cities like I know we do, we have an appetite to try to do something for affordable housing, but well, we haven't found our willing developers who want to really do it, so. That may be changing, we'll see how this shakes out. The other areas that I think were, the one bill that we worked pretty hard on with the league was the beekeeper bill that would have taken any control away from cities, and we got that to a place that was workable and reasonable. The other bill that was kind of a consternation for us was the bill about the budget process for elected officials, and that bill got watered down pretty far, and I think now it's just basically relates to the city manager or the city executive, so everybody else got taken out of the bill, so. So obviously it was directed at a particular, I mean, obviously it was directed by this legislator to a particular city, but couldn't do just that city, so I had to throw everybody in. But we got that to a place that was actually workable, but.
And what is it, the budget related to the?
So
city
if you're
manager?
giving a raise to your city executive, you have to hold a separate budget, you have to have a separate meeting to talk about that raise. And then, so you can hold the meeting and then hold your budget meeting on the same night, you just have to open the meeting, close the meeting, open a new meeting, close, it's not a real helpful bill, I don't think, but at the end of the day, it's. The legislature decided that's what they wanted to have happen, so it happened.
Was that to
originally
bring
start-
transparency to the process?
It's a
or-
transparency thing, but it originally started out that every city employee. Then we got it down to, we whittled away at it, got it down to just people that were like elected or appointed. And then we got it whittled down just to the city executive, so we kept chipping away at
To
it.
Brian's point, most bills up there tend to be one individual who had an experience and then they open a bill file, so.
Yeah, that's not unusual for the legislative process. We legislate to a lot of anomalies up there, and that's true in every state. It's not just unique to us. It's just how the legislative process works.
Hey, Brian, can I ask you about the infrastructure bill? Did that pass?
The
So the developers can create their own infrastructure district?
oh yeah, that one did pass, but they didn't give them any kind of authority that a city would have, like eminent domain or
Police.
or anything like that. And if there's any lien against the property has to be satisfied before a certificate of occupancy can be issued. So it turned out to be a pretty good bill in the end. I mean, the challenge I think for cities will be verifying that the lien has been released before you issue the certificate of occupancy, but talking to the league, they think there's a process to do that. It shouldn't be too difficult, so we'll see how that shakes out, but that bill did pass, and how much of a difference that will make in the actual affordable housing world, I don't know. It was never really couched as affordable housing, but more just a way to create more housing with the idea that, supply and demand, if there's more supply and the demand is lower, the prices will go down. I don't know in this world if that economics really works, but we'll see. It's all, they're trying. I mean, they're trying to do things that are sensible, and they're trying to do things that help create opportunity. So you can't blame them for that, but I mean, this is going to be a generational problem. Probably it's going to take some time to work out of the situation we're in right now before things catch up.
So Brian, I know that was the last day or the day before, I know they were still working on the building inspector bill. If you want to give an update on that.
Oh yeah, that one was a tough bill. So that bill, when it finally got worked out, initially it was going to be developers could just hire a building inspector, whatever, and go around the city's building inspection process. Now it boils down to what the bill that passed was basically the city has a list of inspectors that if the developer can choose from, that they're paid for by the city, they're vetted by the city. So the city still has control on that building inspection process. You're not giving control over to a third party that would be.
Brian, that's only if we don't do the work in a certain amount of time, right?
3 days.
Yeah, 3 days.
3 days. So we have 3 days to inspect, to do their request. And if we don't in
Process.
3 days, they can, yeah, they can hire their own inspector,
Exactly.
not their own, somebody that's approved by us. Okay.
Right.
And Mike Johnson and I've talked, that's not an issue really.
We're
for
next
us.
day. We've
We're
never
next
been
day.
more than one business day.
Yeah.
So.
So,
Perfect.
So, I mean, it's probably, I think for most, actually, for most cities, it's not really an issue, but it's again, it's those anomalies and that's what they legislate to, so. But yeah, that bill ended up being, and kudos to the league and the effort they put forth on that, because that was a tough one, and Cameron did a phenomenal job on all the affordable housing, the homeless stuff. That was a big issue this session, the homelessness issues. You know, at first, there was a bill that would have actually cities offer the homeless advisory council. We were able to get representation back on there, but that would have been, you know, not having any cities on that committee would have been horrible for cities, because you know, there's nobody there to protect their interests, but they actually got the representation back on, which is helpful. And so there's just a lot of bills. I think we ended up tracking how many bills?
Over 300.
Yeah, it was over 300. I don't know what the exact number is, but and they turned out well. The governor signed most of the bills now. There's a few that they haven't signed. I don't know if there's any that we really cared about on our list that haven't been signed. There's still a couple of bills out there that I think
Your Greg's bill. We care about that bill.
oh, your bill.
Yeah.
I just stepped out. I texted Senator Collimore, because I talked with him yesterday. I said, hey, are you hearing anything? Is he just waiting? And he said, he goes, I haven't heard anything. He's a Senate sponsor of 488. But so I texted him and said, hey, he was gonna make some calls today, and he called me back because he was driving, and that's why I stepped out. So apologize for that. He said, spoke with the governor's office today and they're gonna sign it. Carlos recommended signing it, said it was just a process where they go through enrolling and they had to get things done and blah, 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 you know, so shouldn't be any problems with that.
So yeah, so that's good. I didn't notice that was one that hadn't been signed. So a lot of, I mean, he's been, the last few days, he's been signing like crazy. So it's been a pretty one.
Well, he can't sign them. I mean, he has 20 days, you know, and tomorrow being the last day, but he can't sign them until they've been gone through what's called a printing and an enrolling process and everything else. And so he's had bills presented to him, to the governor's office as late as last week on the 12th. So, I mean, you know, then they're trying to review them, obviously, prior to officially being presented, but we should be good.
Yeah, there were a couple of short-term rental bills that were offered but never got anywhere. The Property Rights Coalition's offered to sit down with us and talk over the summer and see if we can come up with a bill that everybody can agree to. Makes sense. And one of the things they've actually offered up is allowing us to use the Airbnb as for enforcement if people aren't properly licensed. So, but there's going to be a trade-off for that. I don't know what that is yet. We'll find that out, but so we'll figure that out.
So Brian, in the bills of bills, at the very end, they added in, it was something that we were working on in regards to short-term rentals. There was a $600,000 one-time appropriation to the tax commission out of their administrative fund to go after for address verification. So it's kind of a step they've been trying to take for years.
Yeah.
That is at least, that's an initial, we'll see what the next year looks like. And there are other efforts that Greg, we know about regarding transient room tax and short-term rentals. And so they're going to study that over the interim.
Yeah, I know I talked to John Valentine over the summer about their enforcement of that. He said they really hadn't been big on their list, but he realizes it's a problem. So it's good that they got money to do that. But
they just want to know who they are, where they are. They're not going to go and do enforcement, but they got to just know, you know, they may be surprised. There may be a ton that they actually had no idea existed.
Yeah.
Or they'll come back and say, you know what? It's pretty aware. We basically know them all. They're going through major platforms, you know.
Those who go through major platforms, the platform collects it, but just some years back when I was still doing a little bit more legal practice or some legal practice, I'm not doing any now. I had a friend of mine, Brendan acquaintance, call and say, hey, the tax commission says I owe them $20,000. And I said, well, what for? And he said, well, my 2 condos in Park City that I've been renting out through KSL. they've gone back over the period of the statute of limitations and done some guesstimates and said, we think this is what you owe us, show us otherwise, because he was not paying the transient room tax. I'm not even sure when he started in the business that he understood what a transient room tax was.
Yeah.
So I think there might be more out there than,
So that's what this effort will
Yeah.
directly take a full look at the entire state and try to capture all of those to make sure they're compliance with tax.
And the one good
That's great.
about that prohibition on cities is it doesn't apply to the tax commission. So if they wanted to use the as to enforce, they could. Doesn't prohibit them from doing it, just prohibits municipalities. So if they wanted to get into the enforcement world. But I think it's a bigger problem than most people realize.
the last bill that doesn't directly affect Cottonwood Heights, but I know that there are several residents of Cottonwood Heights concerned, as there was some legislation involving gravel pits. And,
Go
sorry.
ahead, yeah.
I was just gonna say, the only thing I would say in regards to those is Senator Collimore was instrumental in getting those studied for an additional year. But it's not going away, and so I know that I represent Salt Lake City and Salt Lake County, and those were issues that they were very, very concerned about.
And there'll be a vigorous study this summer.
Yeah, and
If
tried to explain to them,
we'll monitor it.
need to
If we
be.
need to engage, we will.
And just so everyone else knows, that is the Representative Snyder bill that was focused on looking at gravel aggregate as a critical infrastructure need, looking at the valley, seeing what the need is versus supply, and trying to come back next year with whatever that data provides
Yeah.
and say, you know what, we're good, or as we all know, they can also use it as a play to move the needle a little bit. So that's going to be studied over the next year.
Yeah.
As they said.
But it'll likely still be controversial next year.
Yeah.
At least hopefully people have been at the table and had a chance to talk it through, but. I mean, it is in the legislative mind, a critical issue because of the building that's going on, the infrastructure development that's going on, and the need for aggregate. And it's a lot less expensive to get aggregate close than having to truck it. And so they're trying to find, I think honestly, they're looking for places to develop gravel pits that are workable, that won't impact cities and towns. I think that's kind of the emphasis of the study, so they can keep it close so that it's not so expensive to build a road or a bridge or, whatever else they need to add for.
Yeah. Well, I want to thank our lobbyists. They do an amazing job for us. We breathe a sigh of relief when the session is over. And I know you guys kind of do too, but this was actually, I think, maybe as positive a year as I can remember, at least of the last three. And like I said before, we're grateful for your efforts to help fund some of our critical needs, and that happened, and we staved off some of the rhetoric we heard about land use early on. So we feel pretty good now. We'll just start gearing up for next year, I guess. Oh gosh. Anyway.
I want to just make sure that we recognize and thank the efforts of our local representatives and our senators, and especially Senator Coleman. He did an absolute yeoman's job of heavy lifting for the city. He was phenomenal.
Absolutely.
I thought he was probably just sick of talking, to be honestly. By the end of the session, I think he was glad it was over. But he did a really good job. We have good representatives who typically support the city in their efforts. It's rare that they'll vote a way that we don't want them to vote. I mean, they do a really good job. I mean, Representative Elison, Senator Reeve, Representative Benyon, Representative Spenlove, they were all just really good to work with. And, Spenlove is retiring, but they all did a good job. But Senator Collimore was exceptional this year. I mean, a lot of our success is due to his efforts. So,
Really good to know. Really good to know. Well, thank you all. Go on another cruise, Greg, and Brian, Chantel, go on one too. So yeah.
All right.
Thank you.
Sorry to hear my brothers. I just came from the food bank.
Thank you guys.
We did almost 2,000 pounds of pinto beans. Scooping them into a bag.
Thanks, Mayor.
Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, we're gonna move on to item B under our staff reports. And that is our Transportation Alternative Program TAP funding priorities. And I'm just gonna turn the time right to Matt, unless Tim, you want to lead in with anything, or should we just give it to Matt?
Nope, just turn it to Matt.
You want me to pull them up?
Yeah, would you pull it up, please? Thank you.
Matt,
All right,
thank you.
Mayor and Council, thank you. The program that we're talking about today is called the TAP, the Transportation Alternative Program. This one is actually administered by the state. It's not through Wasatch and federal funding. It's a state funding program. Couple of things from the retreat. One of the things that we were asked to do is see what kind of funding we can find for various projects, especially sidewalk, and TAP is built for that. So we've been looking around and trying to find these things. Our needs on sidewalks are many, and we have quite a few things to look at. Let me just throw this out right now on the TAP. First, we presented two things for you here tonight. This is for your discussion. We're not by any means telling you this is what has to be done, but this is for your discussion. We put Creek Road in here with some sections of Creek Road that need sidewalk. If you'll recall, Creek was brought up a few times. There's sections of sidewalk that are missing all up and down Creek Road. It's the cost on this total of Creek Road, just to do it all, we've estimated in between 500, 600,000. It's quite a bit of money. And one of the biggest reasons is up on Pepper's Hill, as you can see there on your right. That section, that requires a big retaining wall and land purchase. So when I tell you the price, it's for everything, okay? It's the whole thing. Paul, do I have the thing? Does this work, Paul?
Which one's the retaining wall and land
I don't
purchase?
know how to work it.
This one.
It's same one, the one on the far right. Creek.
That one right there.
That- Yeah,
So that one's the,
This one, you wanna show this one?
it's where you go up the real steep
No,
hill.
go back to the other, I'm sorry. Thank you. This works, right? I guess, I don't know.
It's on.
I don't know how to run that. So the one that's on the right on your screen is the retaining wall plus property acquisition. Oh, thank you. Oh, those two, okay.
From what I've observed,
Yeah, sorry.
that these two get a lot more use like this.
Yes, for sure. And that's part of this discussion. One of the, and you are correct. Also, the one on the top, the top there, that's what we call the castle. If you know where the castle is off Creek Road. That's a section of Creek Road that's missing on sidewalk. It's also on the safe route walking. So we are going to propose that we focus on this, and I'll tell you why in a minute when we talk about the funding. But this is one option. What do I aim it at?
Didn't have to aim it in.
Just wave it? Paula?
It's in the wrist.
Oh, is it in the wrist? You weren't kidding. Can you go to the next one, please? Okay, this is 2,300. We've talked about that as well, completing the sidewalk from Fort Union down to the city boundary. There's sections of sidewalk that exist. There's sections of sidewalk that don't exist. This is making this a little bigger the whole way through for pedestrians on the west side of 2,300. Estimated cost on this one around 600 to 700,000. It's once again, there are property issues related to this, as well as construction of the sidewalk. Now, those are a couple of projects that put out there for you, for your consideration. One thing you need to know about it, though, we were asked to find whatever funding we can, and this is one of the fundings that did become available. This funding source is a 60-40 split. So whatever we decide to do, we have to come up with 40% of the funds. The other caveat to this, the maximum on this fund, this particular one is $150,000. So
That's the maximum match that you
no,
don't.
that's the maximum fund for this project. That's
So
the
the
maximum
project
project. I mean, we can go as high as we want, but they'll only give you 150,000 total. So short term, if it's $100,000 job, we can get 60, we gotta come up with 40. Or we can go up to 150 and then pay the rest. That's why we're saying. Can you go back? I don't know. That's why we're saying right now, if we want to go after this type of fund, we would pick one section of Creek Road and use that funding for this. And we're recommending by the castle right now, getting that one completed. But
It's a pretty short.
it's a short
pretty short.
stretch, yes.
It's right next to the shops. So
Correct.
people are actually walking there.
That is correct. And
So did you say that it's considered a safe route to school?
I believe it has a safe route on it.
What school would they be
I'm
walking
not
to?
sure.
Oak Ledge? I mean, I'm trying to imagine
Oak-
where they would be
yeah.
walking to. The
It's
closest
just-
school.
It's right, yeah.
No, I understand where it is, but I'm wondering what
Is it Hillcrest?
students,
Could be Hillcrest High to the west.
Yeah, it's students on the other side. It was reported to me it's on a safe route. So at this time, but once again, it's a section of sidewalk on Creek Road that we've talked about, that we want to get Creek Road completed. This may be an opportunity to fix this one section of Creek Road. But as we think about it, like I said, I don't have the estimate for this section. But my guess is it would be close to the $150,000 we would require.
So just
to build
across,
this.
yeah, so I'm just looking, I'm less familiar with this area, obviously, because it's not in Cottonwood Heights, but I'm just looking at it. Just, you all can't see this, but basically a block south is.
Yeah.
Is Jordan Valley School, is what it says. So there's a school basically across the street there.
well, I don't mean to, I just,
Right here.
well, that Jordan Valley, that's clear over on 10th East. Jordan Valley, that's for,
Do you think we could
So there it is
do
right
this
here, and
particular
then the
project for
school's
the
right here.
150 plus? the-
This
That's
one
my guess. I'm just taking.
no, and I
Oh,
appreciate
yes.
that, Matt, I'm just
All the
trying
needs
to
on Creek
see.
Road.
Does that typically the
Sidewalk.
prioritization matrices that you look
But
at?
this,
safe
this
route
is a
first?
Yeah,
school
we
for the
try to find safe
handicapped,
routes.
so I don't think
I
any
don't
of
know,
those children.
I don't know what the
It's-
criteria
it-
is.
So I'm just saying, I
It
don't think
also
those
scores
children,
higher.
they all are busted,
When you-
but they're all
When
handicapped
you put
children
in
that
your
attend Jordan
application,
Valley. So
there's
the
a scoring
closest really
system
would be
and
if they
it
were
gives
going
you
to
better
Hillcrest, because here's Hillcrest High School.
Yeah.
Okay, well, I know having a side discussion,
So-
selfishly, obviously, I'd love these road ones closer to me. But also, this will probably spill into our annexation discussion. We are gonna talk about trying to annex the properties that are south of Creek. And then Creek Road becomes more of a issue for us, so right now. I tend to agree. I'd love to have it down by me, but I think the one up by Fort Union, sorry, by Union Park makes more sense. The one up on the top upper left.
It is it's a pretty small piece. If
It
I,
is a small stretch, but remember, I mean, just keep in mind, 40% of whatever the cost is, we would have to match.
which is why I'm saying that's a good thing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, well, I mean, it's nice to get at least 60% of it, but we would need to come up with the other match. It is a small grant.
The lower left isn't that big either, actually.
No.
That's a smaller area compared to the
One-
center and the right.
One thing we can do is we dig, if this is the route the council wants to go, once again, this is not. I am by no means making this the priority, but if we decide to go this route, we can take these sections and see if we can get as many as we can on there for, try to keep it at the $150,000, unless you would like to go higher. It's one of those options that are out there.
So this one in the lower left, just if you kind of picture where that is, that's a short area, and as you go, this is looking towards Highland here, and so there's a church right here, with all these neighborhoods over here. It's just, and there's room for it, and it's not that big.
It's like
Like I said, we can get two, if we can get three, we would go for three. We can do anything you want to do if you want us to focus on Creek Road. I think 23 is a little big for this type of project, maybe we wait and see what other funding opportunities come up for 23, which they do come up. It's not like they won't, but this is one that was brought up during the retreat, so we thought we would bring it forward.
So we need direction because we've got to get,
Yeah, I don't remember the day. Mike, do you remember the day this was?
it's April
15th, yeah.
I like type top left, bottom left.
Well,
My suggestion.
I know that we're soon to, as I understand, receive our priorities from our retreat, which are to help us, make priorities in 2024. And one of those retreat items was prioritizing, where we want to have improvements at the different, and I think that it should be at the different cost levels so that staff has the metrics that when they bring this to our table, are they to prioritize safe routes to school? Are they to, how do we view, because there's so many places in our city that need continuous sidewalk, but are we thinking, again, in terms of priorities for where is the greatest need? I personally, I don't have a single school in District 4. Okay, but my sensibilities are that making sure that the routes that children walk and roll on or walk to get to their bus stop are as safe as they can possibly be. And so that's why I keep bringing this up. I look forward to engaging at another time, not in this work session, on coming up with those priorities so that for Matt Ship's department and other departments, when these things are brought to the council, they've already have these metrics to work with. So I don't.
Have a recommendation.
I'm not going to come up with a new project. I think the selecting from within this and the direction I'm hearing. I mean, the mayor's still online. I'd like to also hear what his thoughts are.
So Matt, are you needing a specific project that you applied for? Is
Yes,
that-
you have that.
April
It's
and he-
specific.
Understood, I wasn't sure.
Yeah.
I would second Suzanne's comments with those two projects that she selected. Maybe we can get one or both of them. And obviously, we'll know the financial cost at that point. I'm sure, like most things, you don't have to accept, you could not accept it if you were awarded it, so.
And what I hear from what you said is that there's somewhat of a prioritization process that's dictated by the grant.
Yeah, they do a scoring. They will do scoring, and it's cost, number of like if it's on a safe route, population served. There are some scoring that they review. Sure.
I
So I'm good
guess at
with
some point I'd like to get a hold of that.
So Creek Road. And we'll get his
7425 and 2125.
we have two supportive.
And as far as 1, 2, I'd say get the one by the castle on 7425 and then. it'd be great.
Mayor,
Because
thoughts?
So many people access Highland Drive, that going in that direction.
Earbuds in.
Can you hear us, Mayor?
Wickers.
Can you hear us, Mayor?
Text him.
I will.
wave at him.
Hold on, now I can.
Okay.
Hey,
What was the other one that you wanted? Here's the castle at 7425, and then what was the secondary? This one, okay.
Lower left here 2175 because it's so short and it should be easier to do than the other two, as far as I know, from having walked that route so many times with the properties and they're situated.
and Matt, we don't want to give you an impossible task. Are those two reasonable?
Oh, all of them, they're reasonable. All of them are reasonable. We'll prioritize 1, 2, 3 if they. And we'll stretch the dollars as far, like I said, we can apply for all three but if the council's direction is to keep it at the maximum allowed grant of 150, then we'll prioritize them that way. Is that making sense what I'm?
Yes.
Yes, just as a cost savings,
Yeah.
still giving something, but not
Yes, taking advantage of it.
Yeah, and then so what we'll do, when I say we, I act like I'm gonna do this work. Adam will go back and he'll do estimates on these. And we'll see where we are. If we can get 3, we'll do 3. If we can do 2, and we'll do 1, and then we'll prioritize if they ask which way we'll.
So I'm good to move forward.
So we have 2. Mayor, can you hear me okay? Can you hear?
I don't think those headphones work.
Oh, okay.
Mayor, hello.
Anyway, we need a third support on this to move forward.
Yeah, I'm good with it.
Okay.
Good.
Okay, thank you. Thanks, Mayor. Here's this broken thing.
Yeah, it is.
I think there's a
Worked fine.
big wave coming in. Okay.
All of it.
No, you good. All righty, so are you okay, Matt? Are we all set with you?
Yeah, I'm good with the direction I've been given. We'll take care of it,
All right, sounds good. Well,
or Adam will.
Or Adam will. 1, 2, I just lost my page here. Okay, we're on to our annexation discussion.
Okay. I'll start this. I just want to make sure. Mayor, can you hear us now?
I'm gonna call him.
I've been texting him.
He's on mute. He's talking, but he's on mute.
You're on mute, Mayor. Can you hear us now? Oh,
No,
okay.
he said no.
Is that allowed? Yeah,
what are
go
the
ahead.
rules?
Okay.
Anyway, what we want to do is talk about annexation. This is something that we talked about in the retreat. And we're bringing this back because there's some timely issues on this related to annexations to the south of the city. So we're going to pull up some maps. And Suzanne or Councilmember Highland, this is an issue that you wanted discussed from the retreat, brought to the council, and so that is what we're going to do. So Mike, you'll bring up the maps.
Yeah. Find the best one. These
It's a pre-recorded.
maps are all very busy, so. Okay, we'll start with this one.
Okay, Mayor, can you hear now?
I can hear you. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you now. We just moved into the annexation discussion. That's where we're at right now. So we're pulling up some maps and we're talking about a continuation of what we talked about at the retreat related to the areas to the south that Councilmember Highland wanted to discuss more fully.
So this is very high level. This includes the granite community, which is that big purple or pink blob on the right side. And then some of these kind of floating areas that are pretty far south of the city, but those are part of the granite community, and there was a request to have that information for
So
tonight.
I'm sorry, I just want to make sure that I understand what I'm looking at. The orange, I see that as orange.
Whatever, yeah, this color, whatever that is.
Those are
So-
unincorporated areas.
Mhm.
But is that, and they're all considered granite?
Granite is most of this large mass that's most of Little Cottonwood Canyon up to Alta. And then granite is also these patches of unincorporated areas to the south and a little bit west of the city boundaries.
So where is the unincorporated that is not considered granite?
That'd be, well, you can see some of these floating islands kind of over here that we didn't highlight, but then there's a few here. And I have closer up maps of each of these areas that are contiguous to city boundary. One of them is both considered granite and also contiguous to city boundary. And then we have these two that are just
Can
east
you-
of Highland Drive.
So I thought we would be seeing something zoomed in.
I
This
have
is-
that. Yeah,
Well-
I'm just showing you context of,
But you do have something in your.
Well, that was the
about-
point. I wanted something that it was legible. I'm
yes.
sorry, but
Okay,
this is not
again,
helpful.
I'm gonna show that.
This is the large
Like I said.
picture.
Yeah,
Look out at the
okay.
map.
It's helpful to me.
Okay, I'm glad.
That's the context, and now we'll
So
zoom.
while you guys are doing this, I'm gonna have to leave before we finish this discussion. I did want to let Councilmember Highland know. So Sandy City does intend to aggressively go after the unincorporated streets south of Highland Creek Road. So I know that's something that we've expressed interest. Sandy is going to aggressively go after them for
Oh.
annexation.
Well, it'll come down to what the citizens want. Is that right?
Correct. They have had annexation requests before and had the votes to move forward, decided not to.
So how do we feel
Your
about
voice
that?
is gone again, Mayor.
Mayor, can you?
You're. We can't hear, what, what he's, at least he's communicated to me, if I can fill in for him, is that it sounds like they've gotten like 3/4 down the path on some of these areas to actually go into Sandy, but there was some, I don't know, technicalities, or there were some questions, maybe as if Tavashi with us, where you're inquiring about questions. And so it sounds like there's been some interest in going into Sandy from those areas, but of course, the appetite could change.
Yeah.
But I do know that the mayor did talk to some folks from Sandy, and they said, and I think it was those that represent nearby said 100% we're going after those folks to put them into Sandy. So it's gonna be but you know, we're David, there's the
So I'll
line.
just tell you
David won.
my general thought about this was that either take it all, Sandy, take it all. It basically let's eliminate one government entity to work with. Well, the legislature's done that for us. So we're not gonna have, let me look at this right now. You have Sandy, you've got unincorporated, Sandy. Right. So when we're trying to get anything done on Creek Road, you have 3 municipalities essentially to work with. And so if it does go into Sandy, then does that make sense? Maybe, but I know right there in the area that's up on the screen right now, those are, I call them neighbors. I know most of them, at least 50 to 60% of them, and they'd like to be in Cottonwood Heights. So, but that doesn't really solve our problem completely, because here's the reception center. So there's basically a reception center, 3 houses, and then 1 private lane with 4 houses that are Sandy already. And this is unincorporated. If you go over here, this is the entrance to Willow Creek.
Yeah.
And there's that tiny little bit that's Sandy, and then on the other side of that is more unincorporated. I don't know that other area unincorporated. I know people who know those people. But I think it will probably come down to the citizens and what they want.
I think from a government perspective, Sandy, you could make an argument either way. Sandy could say, look, we're already on this side of the creek, it should just stay that way.
This will go.
It's not abnormal for
I'll look 5 of these, they'll work best.
Okay.
borders to not be an exact box.
Yeah. Sure.
So at the end of the day, we could all probably make that argument, but what do those residents want? And I think if they want to come here, it sounds like we'd be open to accepting them, and Sandy would do the same, so.
But since Granite has already met and talked about their annexation possibilities, we've got to jump. We've got to get on this right away. And Granite and their agenda had Sandy, Cottonwood Heights, and incorporating themselves. And that the minutes, all I saw was Sandy and incorporation. Cottonwood Heights was not on that. And I don't know what happened there with that discussion.
Well, I've gone over the last probably 3 years. I've been going on and off to the Granite community meetings, which occur every first Wednesday of the month. And I know of Vaughn Cox and Greg Shipman. And so I think, if the city, if we come to the conclusion that a majority on the council want to actively be in outreach, I think we need to be clear on what our city offers as it contrasts with Sandy, and be in conversation. And, to your point, Councilmember Highland, let's really have our eyes open and do this very deliberately and do it right away. Because if they're being courted by state, if it's something we want that would be advantageous, whether it's for tax revenues, if that's a net positive and all these things, yeah, we need to.
Well, their interest is police, public safety services that would be so accessible. So what we talked about yesterday was, doing a town hall very soon and outlining the benefits, the contrasting the mill rates, what would they get. And I know that they're rational people. They're going to want to know those answers.
Well, and we do have working in our favor that Sandy just had a huge tax hike in this last year. I mean, there may be some,
I was asking
Potential
those
to that.
questions,
Mhm.
and it sounds like we were probably apples to apples as far as what the tax liability would be for a resident if you went to Sandy or Cottonwood.
no, we have a very low mill rate comparatively, right? Is that correct?
Well, yeah, we do. I think we are, with their increase, we're less than that. Than Sandy. I don't know exactly what that is right now, but I think we're less, but.
I don't think it's a huge gap though, is it?
Yeah, what I don't know is the comparisons of water. Water and things such as that would be part of potentially what they offer. I don't know. It's probably Salt Lake Public Utilities here. But I'm not.
Find out.
Those are
Hey,
things
Mike,
that
can you
would
go to
have
that last
yeah.
map?
Yeah,
that first
yeah,
one?
so this goes, yeah, I've got a few here that go west to east.
How, tell me this, how angry would you go after this?
Well, that's
Because
the.
I know all of these people.
Yeah, but if it's
You would
already
have
part
to
of
have-
Sandy.
You would have to have Sandy vote to disconnect, and that's a completely different process.
Yeah.
And they wouldn't.
They wouldn't.
No.
Okay.
You would handle a via boundary adjustment if it's contiguous to cities.
Yeah.
We entered into, probably 10 years ago, some sort of agreement, some sort of policy, mutual policy with Sandy and Cottonwood Heights about how the annexations would occur in this area, so.
So this is about 50 homes, I'm guessing, just right here,
That would be
50, 60,
Yeah,
60.
it's that agreement that's the. That we're stepping.
We also went through a months-long dance with Willow Creek in particular. 10, 15 years ago, with open houses and this and that, but ultimately nothing really came of it. The mayor at the time, Kelvin Colmore, as I recall, had a sister who lived in the area. Thought she could orchestrate folks coming here or whatever, but ultimately, I think the only things that we ever annexed were a couple of cul-de-sacs on Creek Road. Councilmember Hart mentioned.
Shane, that document, was it just a kind of a,
It was,
Not-
I don't think it was an interlocal agreement. I think it was kind of a
some
mutual policy.
mutual understanding
yeah,
or
sort of
something?
thing. I doubt it's enforceable, but I
Still
can
interesting.
provide the number of that. I don't recall what it says.
Well, our general plan outlines this area as, these areas as potential annexation areas. Our general plan was developed many years ago, of course, but it does have these two areas in that. So,
So I can tell you there were a couple of really vocal residents years ago who are now no longer there. In fact, one of them moved into Cottonwood Heights, the other one passed away. They were just adamant they didn't want to be part of a city. And so now that that obstacle is gone, I just think it's a favorable time to jump. See what we can do. I can even send out a text message to most of these people, people and say, hey, city is looking at this, just be aware. But not the
What
other
you
one,
would, what
not the
what
other
you
one,
would
on
have to
Rubidoux.
do is you have 3 years for them to go through the process of a normal run-of-the-mill annexation. So they would put a petition together and they would petition a municipality to annex in. After that, obviously, it automatically goes to Sandy.
Right.
So, I mean, from their perspective or whoever, the local representatives, if this is an interest of yours, you would need to direct them to start the petition process and get signatures to do that whole ordeal, right, Tim?
Yeah.
So I guess, Suzanne, I think this is more of an interest for you for this specific parcel, so you may want to just encourage them to start that process. Or not, whatever.
So I'm back. Can you guys hear me?
Yes.
yes,
Okay, I don't remember exactly where I left
I
off.
gave them a little update from
Okay,
update I've heard from you, so I think they're caught up to speed.
okay, great. So I don't know if you heard me. The last thing that I was talking about was the thing that you're gonna have to remember, annexing any of these homes will include snow plows and road maintenance, things that won't, we wouldn't be required with others, will be required for all of these annexations.
Most of what's on the screen right now is actually private lanes.
Yeah, I was gonna say, is that yellow?
Yellow is showing as public streets.
Okay.
The black is private, so it looks like there's four yellow cul-de-sacs and then one private, and then there's another one that accesses.
No, those people.
So hold on.
Wait, you said the black is,
The black is private, so,
Black is
so
private.
according to
Yellow
to our
are-
records, most of that is public. There's not a lot of roads, but they are cul-de-sacs.
This black one right here, this is a private lane.
Creek Hollow Cove.
So,
Yeah.
so that means. How'd that work? Is this, hold on, oh, the road's here.
Yeah, this is the road.
Oh, okay,
But these are
okay.
out there on the side.
Yeah,
I thought there was another private lane, like Creative Place or something.
there could be.
What is this right here?
That's a stake center.
Oh, that's part.
Yeah, that's parking and there's a pavilion behind the back of the property.
So what we need is, I mean, we need your thoughts on if you want to pursue this, how you want to pursue it. Obviously, they would have to petition. That could be conveyed. And then it's a process, and obviously the process, then we would evaluate if they do petition and get the number of signatures. Ultimately, that would be the council's decision down the road, and we'd have to do an assessment of costs and things such as that.
can we continue to the
Yeah.
east and look at all this?
This is the Willow Creek area. Again, it looks like mostly public with Water Vista Way being private.
I think the path of least resistance is citizen driven. If they drive this and put in a petition, start that process and go that way. I don't think we're gonna get a fight with Sandy City over this.
A little further east, now we get into areas that are adjacent to our boundary, but also part of the Granite community. So this
Can you
is,
orient us?
this is Giverny right here at the very top. So just south of Giverny, this road here. This is the city's Wasatch Boulevard. This is North Little Cottonwood Canyon Road. So the high T is just above this. So I think this is the utility property and then just a little residential area. Granite Oaks.
What I can do, and I think I should do, is send out this message to all the neighbors I know and tell them Sandy, Cottonwood Heights.
You
Do you have that? Yeah, do you have a preference? And please contact me.
Bill, you guys have 3 years.
We just
An
made
FYI,
these
I don't
today.
think is.
Okay.
But. To Sean's point, there's a line.
And somebody's gonna hear about it anyways.
My intent, again, eliminate one municipality. We've already done that with the bill. So if it goes to Sandy, okay, I'd rather have the tax revenue for us, and I think those citizens would rather be in Cottonwood Heights, but let's ask the question. And I'll do that this week. And what about, Councilmember Burrell, your contact at Granite? Can you reach out?
Yeah.
See the appetite, and why Cottonwood Heights wasn't in the minutes, even though it was on the agenda?
Okay.
You have to, and you know this, but you have to focus on process, that this is an option, a decision's not being made that we're trying to say that we will do this, but it's a process that we would have to go through. There's no guarantee that the council would approve it. I think that we just need to be clear. I don't want to have expectations out there. So just make sure you're aware of that.
The Granite community, there were a bunch of different little pockets all over the place.
Yeah,
So. How would it be each, I guess it would technically be each individual island could make its own individual decision, okay.
they would have to, yeah, because it's like
And
all
some of them
these-
could never come here because it's
No, they're
surrounded by
they're-
Sandy.
half a mile plus away
Yeah.
from our border. So it's all this and then most of the canyon. I think most of the population.
So can
is in these
I
areas.
ask, Councilmember Burrell, or are there certain areas that you were interested in trying to get to come to Cottonwood?
Well, I just want this to be a comprehensive thought process, and I mean, what's advantageous for our city, Councilmember Highland has given this a lot of consideration. I have not. My intent in going to the Granite Community Council meetings over the last 3 years is more to understand what their concerns are, because they border on Cottonwood Heights, they border around Old Wasatch Boulevard, and they're part of this whole transportation corridor discussion. So my interests have always been related to the flow, to, mobility, not so much, I've not entertained annexation. But I just think that as we are having a conversation about annexation, what are, as our city manager has brought up, what's in our general plan? Where do we want to see Cottonwood Heights in 10 and 20 years from now? Is it advantageous for us to have a higher population and more acreage? I can't answer those questions, but I appreciate that we should be looking at all of this again with what's in the best interest over the next 10 and 20 and 30 years. Does that answer your question? Yeah.
Thank you.
You'll be in charge. Although you can hear us.
He's on the plane.
Dedicated there.
Okay.
The bottom line is I don't want to have a fist fight. I just want to ask the questions for this annexation process, especially if my neighbors have expressed interest in being Cottonwood Heights.
Let's see if he's in economy plus or where he's sitting.
He's in the exit row.
So I think, is there anything else we need to discuss on this?
I don't
matter?
think so.
Then we'll just go into the review of calendars and then go into a closed session.
All right. So we're in our review of calendars today and upcoming events. We have the past musical production poster exhibit out in the City Hall foyer. I can call that. And that will be here throughout the month of March. And it will be ending on the 31st. We have the Easter egg hunt coming up Saturday, March 30th, beginning at 10 a.m. at Butler Park. Everybody ready for that? I'm gonna try to.
Gonna have
see
my
if I can-
camera ready.
Yeah, I'm gonna see if I can muster up my braveness and come to be there. Sometimes I get overrun by kids. I don't know what they think I'm like Santa Claus or something. And we've got the art exhibit coming up in April. It is the Utah Women Making History. That one will be here at City Hall, April 1st through May 4th. And I'm looking forward to that. I've seen a lot of the history of women here in Utah, and I think it'll be a phenomenal exhibit. Next, we have the Great Utah Shakeout Drill, which is April 20th, starting at City Hall. And did you have that discussion today in your meeting? You have anything you want to add to that?
No, I might mention it when we do our committee reports
Okay.
in business meeting.
Wonderful, great. And here's something I'm always excited about is the community tree sale. And that is April 20th through April 21st here at City Hall. And can you speak to that?
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah, so we purchased, the council allocated some budget for us to purchase some sapling trees, and we're buying those at wholesale rate and then selling those to residents at that wholesale rate. It's kind of a wall supplies last thing, but we have quite a few trees that we have ordered, and they'll be here and people can drive up and purchase up to 2 trees and plant them in their yards.
Do you know what type of tree?
We do. I don't know off the top of my head, but I'm happy to share that with you.
Yeah, because I know a lot of times it's the drought tolerant trees that are pretty popular for
Yeah,
parking strips and things like that.
yeah, so we have one deciduous species and then one evergreen species. We can put it in the council memo
Okay,
this week.
wonderful. We'll look forward to seeing that.
Hey, Mike, are we gonna verify that people live in Cottonwood Heights when they come to buy them?
We are, yeah.
You're breaking rules.
Yes, he is. And then lastly, we have Butlerville Days, July 25th, 26th, and 27th here at Butler Park. Any questions on any of those events or activities? Wonderful. Next, we're going to move into a closed meeting. And this is to discuss the litigation, property acquisition, and or the character and the professional competence or physical or mental health of an individual.
And the 2 topics we'll be discussing is the litigation and property acquisition.
Great.
So whoever makes the motion needs to.
Motion to adjourn and then motion to move into a closed session.
Second that.
Related to litigation.
related to litigation and property acquisition.
Wonderful. We have a motion by Councilman Holton and a second.
Yes.
I just need my drink. Councilman Highland.
Call me by first name. You can.
I was gonna call you. by your thing. I was gonna say scared. Okay, don't do it, don't do it.
Protocol.
changes,
it make
it feel like a.
Alrighty. All like this, so we're all.
All in favor?
All right,
Bye.
Wonderful, thank you. We are adjourned.
Okay, any
Any
opposed?
opposed? None, we're adjourned.